We've been doing this podcast for 2.5 years now, and the most listened to episodes are always the ones talking about career and certifications in Treasury. So we decided to partner up with the AFP, the Association for Financial Professionals, so we can offer you a $100 discount code on all of the AFP's products. This includes, of course, the CTP, the Certified Treasury Professional, which is hands down the most renowned and recognized certification in Treasury out there. And of course, the access to the CTP exam prep platform as well. Check the link in the description to access to those discount codes and take your career to the next level.
Fi, welcome to the Corporate Treasury 101 podcast.
Hi, it's great to be here.
It's great to have you. We're going to have a really interesting conversation today, something that I know you're very, very passionate about, as have been a lot of our past guests as well. So really excited to jump into it. But before we get into it, tell us a little bit about yourself. So can you share with us the story of your career journey to date? Hopefully further, the story gets even more and more interesting. And what were those pivotal moments in your career, as you tell us that led you to where you are today?
Yeah, well, I've been working in Treasury for just over 2 decades now. But when I left secondary school, I wanted to become an actress. And then after taking a gap year and going to see my family in Ireland, I went on to study tourism management. And I guess that, so that eventually led to moving over to Dublin in 2003, which a lot of young Australians do, one-way ticket. And I just found myself working for the Bank of Montreal in Dublin, Bank of Montreal Island. And I was just working, I just accepted a job as an office manager for something permanent because I needed travel money. That was the priority at the time. And I just one day said to about 20 people that were working there, and I just asked for more work, and there was a job available in the fund accounting team, and I did that, and then I ended up moving into the role of Treasury backup, and then eventually in the role of Treasury, which I really enjoyed. And then just before the crash happened in 2008, I accepted a role in the Pfizer Shared Service Centre, and had a great 5 years there, and decided I wanted a little bit more sunshine, I guess. And after 11 years in Dublin, it was time to move back to Sydney again. And I did that nearly a decade ago. And and I've been working in Mastercard for most of that for just over 8 years. My role currently is Director of Corporate Treasury primarily. I work for prepaid card management side of the business, which was extremely interesting, moving through the whole past couple of years with COVID and how there pretty much wasn't any business there for a couple of years. And I also help with Corporate Treasury in New York with FX trading as well. So I guess that was little pivotal moments throughout my career.
Super interesting. So I love how sunshine was a big part of that decision, and travel, and not at all Treasury itself. And we've heard of very unconventional career paths into Treasury. Our good friend of the podcast, Mike Richards, has said many times that there's no direct path into Treasury, and most people do end up in Treasury by accident. Most people don't do tourism management and end up in Treasury, though. That's quite interesting, and clearly you got a good knack for it if you're able to progress with such an unconventional degree.
Yes, I wanted to be an actress and I became an accountant. So I got the AC right. But I do like numbers. It's funny, as you grow even as an individual and evolve, you really learn what your talents are. And I think the whole aspect, even learning about what's going on in the world and having exposure to, even with the FX trading different currencies, it brings that excitement of, the travel element into it, I think.
Super interesting. And so in that career that you just laid out very briefly, what were the main challenges that you had to overcome in getting to where you are today?
Well, first of all, because they were quite very different, pivot, having the technical knowledge or the qualifications. So I did spend, probably nearly a decade in tertiary education, part-time, a lot of it. So working, I guess that's a challenge, right? Working and studying. Also, I have found I pretty much predominantly worked in operational roles, and that whole deadline aspect of it actually you don't realize how hardwired your brain is to deadlines until you start talking to other people, then you just realize you're so used to that being on a schedule. Being a highly organized person was super helpful for that. I think definitely believing in myself throughout my career, just being more comfortable of being in front of senior management, for example, and just not knowing, going into a meeting with them and not knowing all the answers and knowing that's okay. And even with your colleagues, so just walking in and just going, okay, I don't know that, but I'm going to take it away and then I'll get back to you. So that also shows that by getting back to the people, you're also showing that you can, build a trust relationship with your colleagues. And, there's a great mantra, I don't know it yet, that great word yet. So I think even in all our careers, if there is somebody out there in the world listening to this that knows everything about Treasury, let me know. I will happily have a chat to you. But I think just accepting that it does actually take a career and even many careers or many lifetimes to learn everything. So it's okay not to have all the answers.
I love that. I think that's good advice for everyone, right?
Yes.
Especially those young in their careers. I think it's the classic adage of, at least for me, when I was younger, I thought adults had everything figured out. And then when you become an adult, you realize no one has anything figured out. And that everyone's just kind of winging it as they go.
Yeah, fake it till you make it.
And the world's still turning.
Yes.
And the world's still turning. So
and that's the great thing. I always say, I'm very spiritual. If I knew everything, then then I'm done. Then apply that to career as well. That's the great thing about Treasury. There's so much to learn, and it's constantly changing, and you can keep learning. And that personally keeps me very interested in this industry.
So talk a little bit about that. How has Treasury changed over your career? So, technology has become a much bigger deal now than it was before. You've seen both the bank side, and now you're on an interesting everyone thinks of Treasury as like treasurers in-house, the inside side, and see the bank side. That's all everyone thinks about and think of Treasurer. But now you're in a very interesting middle ground as well. How's your careers? What are the major changes that you've seen in Treasury throughout your career?
I think, the first thing that came to mind is, I used to have a PC when you shut down at the end of the day. That was it. Now it's laptops and, phones, so you're available 24/7. One really great thing is access to information with the internet, podcasts. I get reports delivered from my FX counterparties every day with what's going on. I think it's great. It actually helps you. It helps me in my job save time, that I can read these reports or listen to these podcasts for market updates and know what's going on, and also what's happening to help me to make decisions. And I think the whole globalization of the way we work, it is so much easier. But also I've seen teams go beyond regional to global, like a lot of center of excellences are being created in larger size companies such as Mastercard. So therefore you maybe used to deal with a team, even in your office, like in Sydney, and now that's moved to, Asia, another area in APAC or EMEA. So you're having to work with different people, different cultures as well, because as much as I love travel, when you work with people, it's completely different as well. Understanding the working culture and the way we work, I think, which is great. So that's a big change. And then with, I work for a company that's, technology company and payments. How easy are payments, majority of payments now, real time. And that whole issue now of real-time payments, trying to manage your liquidity versus receiving payments overnight. And then when the payment area has changed, payment landscape has changed, then that customers are demanding different things, and they want everything to be fast. And then when you make things faster, we have this other beautiful area called fraud. And I think all of, pretty much everyone nowadays has received some email professionally or personally about fraud. So the way that is occurring, and we need to be more vigilant and really understand, because they do get you. Sometimes you have to think twice before you press open that link. They do get you once in a while. yeah. You think it's not going to happen to me.
Hopefully it's the friendly phishing ones. It's the ones that, the ones that your HR or your cybersecurity team sends you just to check if you're clicking bad links or not. And it gives you have you had those?
Sorry, you cut off there. You just froze for a second.
Have you had those friendly phishing emails? Do you guys do that internally?
Yes,
where
yes.
It's just the cybersecurity team trying to get you?
Yes, and they are really good. And that's the point of them, right? We have them on a monthly basis. And then there's actually policy against that as well, to make sure that we're just vigilant and just, to show that it's being taken seriously. So if you do get it, you do press that button, there is repercussions on the back of that. Because because it's serious, isn't it? You think it is really serious what's happening out there.
No, indeed. Fi, I want to go on to a topic that I know you're very passionate about, and I think it's a very timely one, or a relevant one in the world today, but especially in Treasury as well. So, you're clearly a successful woman in Treasury. Director of Corporate Treasury at Mastercard is a very impressive title. And I'm sure you've had your challenges in getting into that position, and the effort you've had to put in to be able to achieve that. And what has been your experience in terms of diversity and inclusion in general in corporate treasury throughout the different aspects of the career that you've had?
It has been very male dominated. I'm going to say white male, very dominated. Often you go to events and there's very few females there. And so that's definitely something that I've seen through the years. And also it's quite sort of role specific. So more senior roles, I've seen that the majority of them are male, whereas sort of back office roles would be largely female from what I've seen. But I can see that landscape really changing. And that whole, I'm a member of the association, the Australian Corporate Treasury Association here, ACTA, and I know that work that they're doing is really encouraging the diversity of thought and promoting women in Treasury and just, sort of breaking down that stereotype that, everybody is welcome at the Treasury table.
Do you think enough's being done?
I think that some work that could be done is, if women are, so I'm not exactly up now on why, say, women at entry level might not be entering Treasury. I sort of have my own, I think definitely some front office staff can come across really confident, arrogant. They men are better faking it till they make it than women traditionally. Not to get myself into trouble here, but and that can appear even for someone like me, when you're sort of, you think I just keep quiet because I just don't want to say the wrong thing. And so I think what could be done now, and there's a lot of industries out there who are gender wise more dominated than one than the other, is try to start at the entry level into bring these sort of having access to skills to help these people progress forward in their career.
I think what you said there is quite true. It's interesting. I was thinking about it when we just started as well, because the first thing that you mentioned about when I asked you about your career and what were the challenges you faced and everything was this concept of I don't know yet. And you really emphasized that point. As a man, I think that just came more naturally to me, perhaps. And it was interesting that you pointed that out specifically. And I was like, yeah, of course. That's why I also mentioned, adults don't have anything figured out. You kind of realize that quite quickly, and you kind of pick up that, okay, well, that's just... I've noticed, I'll give you an interesting story, not treasury related. We do some hiring for our company. And I have noticed on LinkedIn jobs, we have these boxes that say, do you have this many experiences, this thing? And then we are editors for this show and everything. And LinkedIn was continuously giving me, it suggests hey, these guys are a great fit. These people are a great fit. and it was constantly coming out with just males. I noted it stuck out because I was expecting, for some roles maybe are not that male dominated, and I should have a variety here. And I removed all the filtering, and I said, look, I just want by date who applied, and a lot of people had applied, but they were showing up less qualified for the job. And the reason for that was that almost none of them selected they had experience in all the different categories that I'd put in the job, but all the men had. And I thought to myself, I don't think it's that the men have the experience. I think the men are more likely to lie. And that the women are like, no, I don't have 3 years of editing experience. I only have 2.5. So I'm not, I only have 2.5. So I'm going to say no. And then it wouldn't come up. Whereas the guy that's got 1.5 years, he's like, it's basically 3. I worked overtime. It's okay. And I think that just comes a little bit more, I wouldn't say that's a good thing to have, the example I gave. But in the scenarios where it is a good thing to have, perhaps comes a little bit more naturally to men than it does to women. It's interesting that that's the first thing that you pointed out as well, where I don't think a man would have given that answer about this "I don't know it yet" being important. In your opinion, Fi, what misconceptions are there about women in treasury and finance in general that need to be challenged or changed or addressed?
Well, it still aligns with that whole "I don't know yet." I found in with my own personal experience that particularly a lot of front office professionals are very, very confident and outspoken. Again, males, I should say, and women can tend to be can tend to be on the quieter side. So that may signal that they don't know, they don't have an answer, or they can't contribute to the conversation. But what I think is really important is to allow the people, even in a meeting room, to allow the people that are quieter the opportunity to talk, because it may be a confidence thing. Essentially, it maybe not be a lack of knowledge.
And so as a manager as well,
the perception,
right? You're advantaged by having the people that are perhaps a little less confident, but still very able, and progressing them forward.
Yes.
Is that your management philosophy as well?
Yes, because I think confidence is not something you can read a textbook on and pass an exam. You actually have to do the work. And that even starts from building a great relationship on a one-to-one level with your direct report, enabling them, giving them the space to speak up and have the confidence. And it also helps determine their level of knowledge, and then start to give them a safe space, and then that can sort of encourage them to start speaking up in small ways at meetings or networking with other colleagues.
I definitely think that there's a space where organizations could definitely benefit from unleashing female talent a little bit more, right? There's nothing to say in Treasury that would make a man better for the job than any woman would, right? Do you think that it is seen like that? Well, let me go 2 steps back, actually. Have you seen any differences over time or in different regions, like comparing your time in Ireland and actually also in the banking sector in Ireland versus the payments space, let's say, in Australia? Has there been big differences in the two?
Well, one very interesting comment from a colleague of mine a couple of years ago was when I was talking about women in Treasury not being as common. He was quite shocked because I was his manager. My manager's a female, and the head of our business is female. So, I mean, that's always a good sign, right? And I'm also very honoured to say that the treasurer of Mastercard now is a female. So that's definitely growing. But I think I still, as a female, I want to earn my place. I don't want to be just given a role because of my gender. So I think it's really important as an industry to start to look at where particular minorities might have gaps in their skills and help fill those, both male and female, because I still want to, I have mentors, both male and female. And I think that helps sort of starting it from a lower level so that when senior positions become available, that there's opportunity for both genders to have a good, like you said, when you're talking about the resumes, seeing predominantly male, that when there's a great opportunity for a leadership role to come up, that you're going to see more females applying for the role as well as male.
I think that's super important. I come from my background is a very male-dominant. My background is in engineering, and we did have a decent number of female engineers in the previous companies I worked in. But there were instances, and some of them were very good friends, and they'd get promoted, and I'd be very happy for them. And then they would confide in me and say, but, and they'd say a little bit off or something like this with their promotion. I'd ask them, what's up? And they would say, someone over there made a comment that I only got it because I was a woman, which is a very nasty thing to hear or say.
Exactly.
That way, that's just a nasty thing to say in general. But that's when it kind of broke for me as well, that this is a real thing, that there's this all push for female progression in a lot of these fields, and that's great. But then no one wants a handout either. Everyone wants to feel like they earned it. And so you need to instill in them the confidence that, no, you did earn this. Well, first you need to make it true, I guess, right? You need to make sure that it is true, that you are training and educating and giving those people the opportunities to be able to be the best X, right? Be the best treasurer, let's say in this case. And then you're promoting likewise. And you give them the confidence that, look, this is actually, you didn't get promoted just because you're a woman and we need to fill a diversity quota. I don't think anyone likes that feeling either. A lot of people on the other side would suggest that women do, but my experience is the opposite, right? That they don't want to feel like they were just given it. They want to feel like they earned it. And to feel like they earned it, they need to actually have earned it. And to have earned it, they need to have been given all the opportunities to grow, to learn, to upskill, to become the best person for that role, right?
I think as we look through history, just being completely honest, there has been certain groups that have dominated based on race, gender, et cetera, and they do. I'm very lucky. I was brought up in middle-class Sydney, and I've been afforded a lot of opportunities some people haven't. I work with a great charity at the moment that promotes, that gives scholarships to really, really bright young girls in secondary school to help them even to be able to use a laptop. So I think intelligence doesn't have any boundaries. So I think that, when we know better, we do better, we hope. And this is all about promoting, I guess, women's groups and other, I guess, if I don't know if minority is the right word, or other sort of less representative groups, is just acknowledging that some groups don't have the opportunities and trying to fill those gaps. And if that gentleman who, I don't know if gentleman's right, if that guy who said, made that really nasty comment, I'm really curious about people. I'd be going like, what is his actual problem? So I think that we're all human at the end of the day, and we just want to do our best. And it's not about shaming another group. It's just about being more educated on what is the right way to do things and how we can progress forward.
100%. You mentioned a really, I think, important point earlier about mentors. Tell me a little bit more about that. It's something I'm very curious about personally, but you specifically raised the point about having both male and female mentors and the advantages of that. Could you share a bit more about that?
Yes, again, I love diversity of thought, and one thing I like to have access to as many different types of people as possible. They always challenge the way you think. In my current role, my manager has been a great mentor to me, both from the technical and the soft skill side, because I particularly think that as you progress your career, definitely the soft skill set becomes sort of, I guess, in the balance of things, a whole new set of skills that you need to develop. And having a really honest and transparent relationship, and her being able to tell me, in a constructive way that, areas where I can need to improve, and then go and do the work. From men and women do look at things from different angles, but also, from a perspective of just even having different career experience. And just talking to people, or mentoring could even be like listening to podcasts such as this, and Mike Richards, I listen to him just because there's so many different ways to get to where you are in your career, and different people have got their, I'm waffling, so I probably might want to cut some of this off, But even getting involved in more networking events, I think I've had some really great experiences with actors, some just really nice people. And, you know, I mean, nobody is walking in there and go, what is your, I mean, they might ask you who you work for and what you do, but they're not the focus on, you know, like what level are you at? Like, and just asking, having the courage to ask questions and also just learn from your own journey.
So why do you think you need both male and, well, okay, let me rephrase the question. What have your male mentors been able to give you in your career, you personally as Fi, given you in your career versus your female mentors and vice versa? Like, what has been for you the advantages from your male mentors versus your female mentors?
Different perspective, looking at things from a different perspective, different ways.
What were those specifically?
And I think
how did the males look at it versus the females for you in reflection? Maybe it's not the diversity of gender, it's just individual human differences. That's also interesting.
Yeah, that's what, because also the women that I have worked with, like my manager in senior management, shit hot, you know, they're really great at what they're brilliant. The women that I've worked with in senior management roles are really great at what they do. And they do have, they might have, you know, they've had maybe earlier in their career issues with confidence, and they're built on that, and they're strong leaders. So I think you can get to a level where males and females at senior levels, which I've seen, are on par, but it's that because they're a different human, they have a different perspective on things. And I think that's great. You know, having just even a small thing, like also I've mentored people. Mentees can look at things a different way as well, and they can help enhance you and make you look at the way you work or your perspectives in a different way.
Definitely. I think there's definitely something to be said about people that have had to overcome more, getting to the same position, being much more, I don't know if, resilient, dangerous in a good way. Definitely being a lot more, I think resilience is a good word, actually. Resilience, definitely the right word. Having overcome those obstacles. And even if, I mean, whatever your opinions are, even if that's just the confidence piece, right? Which I think anyone that's been around any age group of, especially younger age groups of men and women will agree that you do see the go head first into danger or into stupid stuff, let's say, coming out of the boys versus perhaps more reserved. Well, on average, right?
You can say it. It's like, wait a minute while I overthink this.
In a good way, just to be clear. I was out last night with some family, and there's two little boys running around, just like doing, like there's this fan running. He's just sticking his hand in the fan, right? And I kept telling him, don't do it. like you're minutes away from losing your hand.
Yeah.
And I definitely did that. And I didn't lose my hand, but I did get hurt as well, right?
I put my hand on a barbecue to test if it was hot. So.
We'll make that mistake once.
Yeah. And I think that's part of this whole growth journey as an individual. You can, you know, it's great to learn from people, but to get to where you are, to be who you are as a professional and personally, you have to go through, these experiences yourself. Like I said, I'm sure there's a zillion podcasts and books you can read about confidence, but, you know, until you actually get up and stand on that stage and present, for example, you don't know what it's going to feel like. And you don't know how you're going to be and react. So you've just got to take a leap, step off the ledge, you know, take a chance is what I would say to any professional, and particularly younger ones. And that I definitely see now that breaking down of hierarchy. I think I'm maybe towards the end of the old school approach to things where I was very much, it sort of didn't matter the person you were, but if you were senior, I would sort of be a little bit mortified of you because it was that respect, that old school respect that you know, I guess you've got to that position for a reason. Whereas now I can see people at the start of their careers speaking up more, you know, just seeing that, you know, everyone's still a human at the end of the day. They're just, those of us who have more career experience is because we've got more years under our belt. Like, we're all at the start at some point.
Do you have any advice specifically on how to build that confidence? So you said there that, you can't read confidence and gain it. You need to go out and do it. How does someone that feels like they need a bit more confidence, a young female treasurer perhaps, actually go out and build that? Do you have any tips for what worked for you?
Well, if possible, address that with your manager, so that you can just say, this is something I'd like to work on. I mean, owning your career, I'm very big on owning your career. You shouldn't put your career in somebody else's hands. So if that's something you want to work on, speak up to your manager and look for opportunities to speak in front of people or have more exposure just to different people in parts of the business. And sign up to a mentor program. We have mentor programs with our Women Leadership Network at Mastercard, and you just get matched with somebody in the business. It doesn't matter sort of what area that they actually work in. So if they have that opportunities, or the Treasury associations, if you're a member of those, have a look and see if they have mentoring programs. Just start to speak up. And I think that's particularly important after the past couple of years we've been through. And there's still that hybrid working environment. I think particularly as you progress your career, verbal communication, how you communicate to different stakeholders, how you communicate with your team, to your manager, is so important. And if we all become just sort of typing in Teams or sending emails, we stop talking to people, I think that there's a risk that you do lose that particular skill, and that's needed as you progress in your career.
And so much to unpack there. That was really great. One thing that keeps sticking out to me is how highly you talk about the initiatives around you in your current circles that promote female talent. So you mentioned how in Mastercard, your treasurer of Mastercard is female right now. Your manager is female. Your head of business is female, and clearly they're doing something deliberate in this field. Deliberate, not to say that they're pushing women up. They're being deliberate about growing, nurturing, and promoting female talent, right? What would you say is some of the initiatives that you've seen at Mastercard which are really great that people could even implement into their own organizations that have really made the difference?
Well, we have a strong diversity and inclusion objectives, and they're actually also incorporated into our objectives at the end of the year. We have a thing called the Mastercard Way. So it's all about building the culture. It's like how we do things, not just what. That's now incorporated in our end of year objectives. One thing, again, this is not specifically Treasury related, but there's a Gold for Tech program because, again, STEM jobs, as you've just spoken about earlier on, is that they don't, it's predominantly male. So around the world, they have opportunities and go to girls' secondary schools and promote that particular area. Women leadership networks, that's something that companies can do that doesn't have to be specific about one business unit. You can just incorporate, and it's open to both men and women. Sorry, it's open to men as well as women, because I think it's, again, it's not trying to achieve, we don't want to make men the minority. It's not about, the experience that they're talking, it's not about, sort of tipping the scales in the other way. It's equality essentially. So that's what I would recommend.
Super interesting.
That's what.
Yeah. And is there a way to, so having company policies around female progression, right? You can very easily fall into the trap of just meeting diversity quotas, because maybe your just target setting was set up that way, where you say, okay, we need to promote this many females this year. That can very quickly become trying to just hit the KPI without the actual reasoning behind the KPI. And then you end up in situations where people do start feeling like, well, no, she got promoted just to meet the quota, whereas maybe a man was more qualified for the job, right? That becomes a very tense situation. Is there a better way of doing it than that? Like, how's Mastercard avoiding that, or the circles that you've seen avoid that?
Look, this is where we again speak about the reality that this is not easy. and there's never going to be a perfect way, because again, I would personally, if I found out I was promoted based on being female, that wouldn't sit right with me, because I worked very hard to get to where I am, and I want it based on merit, not gender. So I think, again, it goes to the point where looking at where there's gaps in particular areas of the business and working out why there are gaps. Is it there's not access to education? Do women not know about these careers? Do we need to get out more into schools and talk about treasury careers? Because as you know, as probably everybody who's spoken on this podcast fell into treasury, as you mentioned. So, and helping as a business build those skill sets so that all groups are on par with each other where there's opportunities.
Yeah, so it's actually like coming down into the root cause of it instead and trying to address those.
And it's yes. And then, you know, there's a whole I mean, when you work for an international company, there are like where we're at with gender diversity is very different in different regions, different countries. There's that whole aspect as well. But I think that the best sort of a great way or a starting point is just to give, you know, if you have leadership programs, offer them, you know, both to men and women, you know, or just have a look at how you can progress. If it's all men progressing in a particular part of the business, why is that? Like taking the time to look into that.
No, super interesting, indeed. Where do you see the overall trend going, Fi? If we look at the future, right, based on your experiences and observations, how do you see the role of women in treasury evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
I definitely see it growing, and I see diversity in general in treasury growing. In panels that I see at events that are held, there is a balance of both men and women in a lot of leadership positions as well. So now the front desk, there's a lot more women there. There's still room to improve. So I just see that there's going to be more diversity in treasury going forward. And that's super exciting. And also, again, breaking down those barriers of not having access to the treasurer, for example, to hear their perspective, that they will, you know, they're all like, sorry, stop for a second. What I'm seeing is a real excitement for paying it forward with people. So people that I've dealt with in Australia that are in more senior positions want to use their experience to help, you know, emerging talent.
Very interesting. And so there's a really famous book, I've forgotten the name, which one of the premises of the book was that in a lot of situations, women are holding women down because they don't do this much of this paying it forward. I can't remember what the name of the book was. It became really, really famous for quite a bit of time. And there was this whole thing about one of the things that was holding the progression down was the lack of high female leaders providing mentorship to growing female talent. And there's the book put a bunch of premises and a bunch of reasons for it. But what's interesting is you see the opposite now. You see that there are a lot more female leaders.
So, like I said, it's just the journey that I've been on alongside my professional and learning more about myself. I'm really interested in the way people think. And if people are like that, are being unhelpful, are they threatened? Why are they threatened? You know, everybody has a story behind their reactions, right? And I think that's something that, you know, is something we can't fix. We've got to know the person, and sometimes you can't ask them. But I really think that from what I've seen and heard, that anybody who's not helping is potentially threatened that somebody's going to take their job. But I say if you're doing a good enough job, you shouldn't be threatened by it. But I don't know, maybe more kindness and compassion in the world. This is totally not treasury. This is I've got this too. You know, I guess that's the side for treasury. I've worked very hard to get where I am, but I'm not cutthroat. And sometimes I have seen that I guess there's a lot of pressure. People are under so much pressure to perform. It can be sort of come across that they're just they had their own agenda. And whereas I think that the people that I've worked with, I've managed to break some people down, which is always good. But you know that we're just trying to do our job, And often, building great partnerships is so much better than just being out for it on your own.
I had a mentor in my previous company, male mentor, who I became very close to, and he was very, very supportive of my career in my previous organizations. And he, everyone else's opinion of him, and he's like VP, and quite a cutthroat guy, really. And everyone's opinion of him was that, look, he's just out for his own career. And he doesn't actually care about you. He cares about his career. That's what everyone else's opinion was. I knew a little bit better. But I used to tell them, like, even if that was the case, he's smart enough to realize that what benefits his organization, right, in general, is having really good talent underneath them. At the end of the day, in those levels, you're not doing the work yourself, right? You're managing it. So it is in his best interest to progress my career and to give me the best development opportunities. So if anything, he's the best mentor to have, because he's not doing it because he just wants to. He's nice, and the second something more important comes up, he's gonna prioritize that. It is a priority for me. The interests are aligned, and therefore
exactly.
I very much trust him with his career advice. Whereas people would warn me and say, "Look, be careful. Like, he doesn't care about you. He just cares about his own thing." I'm like, "No, he cares about his own thing. That's why he cares about me." In that he's going to put me in the best, because he had, taken me under his wing and whatnot, and said that, look, I need you to do well, because you're going to do the work or get the work done.
Otherwise he has to. That's great people manager.
You need good people around. You need stars in your team. If you want to get anything good done, you need the all-stars batting for you, right? And that's
otherwise he's going to be working 24/7.
Correct.
And nobody wants to do that, so you need.
Or he's going to make promises to his bosses and say, "Yeah, we're going to do this great thing, and we're going to achieve this," and he can't deliver on it because he doesn't have the team behind him to be able to actually live up to all those promises, and we make him look good at the end of the day, as well, right?
That's a great manager, whatever their temperament is, that knows that having a good team behind them makes them look good, whether that's for their own benefit or just from a good from a good benefit, which my manager gets that about her people, not from that side, not from a ulterior motive side, but she knows that she can't do her job if she does not have the right people and the people progressing. Because when I first started, she was a bit more hands-on, because she needed to be why I built my skill set, and she works enough.
Yeah,
so.
Correct, exactly right. So even in a world where regardless of your political views, regardless of how you view the world, everyone, even in their self-interest, especially management, want just the best people below. That was another feature of this individual. No one actually questioned him being sexist or anything like this. He had plenty of women in his organization, that's for sure. But again, because he just wanted the best people, there was actually quite a natural quota, and I wouldn't fault any one of those directors that were female versus the male engineer directors. He just picked the best talent for the best role. Again, in his self-interest, at times, to say, look, I need the best people to get the best work done so that I can go out and say that my organization is the best and we achieve and da-da-da. And he got promoted based off of it. He didn't care what was between your legs. He just cared that who's best for the job. And that was, that was really quite an interesting moment as well.
Yeah, but this is even like this cancel culture that's out there at the moment. Like, you're right or you're wrong. And if you're wrong, then that's it. Or you pass or you fail. Whereas, well, one thing I've really worked with is failure, and it's a lesson to be learned. I had to change my relationship with failure, and that's actually helped with yourself out there more. If you go, I'm going to give this a go. If it doesn't work, it's not necessarily a failure, it's a learning. And I think too, with people, it's, again, when you mentioned, I think I was thinking this at the time and I lost my train of thought, but about people, sort of, there are some skills that you can teach, but there's some that you can't. So it's sort of like looking at somebody who has 80%, but they've got all the things that you want, and they're going to be a great team player and fit into your culture. There's certain technical skills that you can learn.
Yeah, 100%. Fi, I'm going to ask you one last question, and off the record. You feel free not to answer if you don't want to, because it's a little bit more of a difficult
Yeah,
one. As personally, right, as a young man coming through corporate America, or when I was, I did see a lot. There was a lot of push, especially also being in engineering fields, for women in STEM, etc. Right, and it translates to Treasury as well. And there's very strong adoptions to champion and push forward women and everything like that. And also, it all sounds great. There's a lot of young men out there, though, who feel that it forces a lot of guilt onto the men. That some would say, men are being told, please take a step back, right? And I don't think anyone wants to feel like that, or men's temperament in general, also willing to accept that, right? Say, hey, look, okay, because some of the language around these conversations is usually, look, men need to do more, even if the women aren't the best person for the job. It's still worth having women in. Well, the very common one is, at least they're still good enough for the job. Even if a man is better for that, should we not prioritize a woman that's still good enough for the job? And that will set a great example to push forward women in general, and then you will start seeing a much more diverse talent coming through, right? Because a lot of the argument is, well, there's no female role models, there's no female mentors in higher positions. We should force some in there to help stir the pot and start getting things moving, right? By definition, almost telling men, even if you're better for the job, take a step back to enable a better society in that argument, right? And even if that's not the case, let's say we both agree that's perhaps not the right way to do it.
I didn't like that approach. And I wonder, are you doing, again, this is me just thinking, are you actually helping the culture by doing that? Because let's just say again, ask these women, do you want to be employed because you're a woman? And I'd put your hand up. You know what I mean? How's that going to, you want somebody, like you said, to come, like we talked about, a great professional to come in, be confident, do the job well, know that they deserve to be there. If you're just having people that are just there for the hell of it, is that going to just change the whole culture? Even the women just go, I'm not really motivated to do this because the people that I work with think I shouldn't be here. I don't really think I should be here. That's why it's so hard. There's no a right or wrong answer for this. I think it's just, and again, the women that I know, none of us we want to earn our place. We don't want to be given something just because we're female. So I just don't, it's hard, isn't it? The more you go into it and you got 1,000 different opinions, but it's I don't think somebody should be stepping aside. If you've worked really, that's the same thing. If I'm saying I've studied my ass off to get to where I am today, I want to be rewarded for my efforts. And that's that person you're talking about, he's worked really hard to get where he is, just to be told, can you step aside? Now, has that worked in the past? No. So many women had to step aside in the past, or people step aside in the past, based on their ethnicity. So that's what ethnicity, because of, as well. And that hasn't worked. So we got to just try a different way of doing this.
What's the way?
In my point, is this well, the way that I see as a fair way is giving everybody an equal seat at the table as a starting point. Again, you've got to try. So a way to get people on an equal footing is having equal opportunity. So it even goes beyond gender, having people, if somebody wants to become a treasurer, how can we make a treasurer available? I'm trying to think of the right word. How can we make a treasurer available to everybody in the world, every young child that wants to get there? Well, they're going to have to have, they're going to have a skill set, but they're going to have access to education, know about the role, et cetera, et cetera.
Indeed.
So that's, I don't, you see what happens with humans when we get pitted against each other.
Yeah.
It becomes disgruntled. And look, I know this is off the record, you hear a lot of frustrated men taking stuff out because they're angry men because they're not dealing with their stuff. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to, by removing all men, I mean, it's not going to help.
Awesome. Fi, thank you so much for coming on the Corporate Treasury 101 podcast. Anything you would like to add on the things that we've discussed, or a key takeaway, one-liner that you want to leave us with?
Own your career.
I like that.
Is that, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you very much, Fi.